Welcome to the Diet Fiction Podcast, the show that tells you the truth about diet, nutrition, and health to educate, motivate, and inspire you to live a healthier, more fulfilling life. And here is your host, Michal Siewierski.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Diet Fiction Podcast. I'm your host, Michal Siewierski. I'm a documentary filmmaker, author, and wellness advocate. And in this show, we expose several misconceptions and myths about diet, health, and nutrition. Join me every week as I interview some of the most forward-thinking and disruptive health experts on the planet to help educate, motivate, and inspire you to live a healthier and more fulfilling life. Hey everyone, welcome to the Diet Fiction Podcast. Today we're going to talk about one of the main topics covered in our film, which is weight loss and dieting. If you're like me, then you might have been confused and frustrated about this issue at some point of your life. I personally went through several yo-yo diets over the years, the typical low carb, high protein, anywhere from Atkins, Paleo, South Beach, ketogenic, you name it. I've done it all. And then I would lose weight, but after I stopped that diet, the weight would come back with vengeance. And in the meantime, my health was just getting worse and worse. I was a borderline type 2 diabetic, I had high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and no energy at all. It was not until I stumbled upon information about a whole food plant-based diet and began implementing this into my lifestyle, it became my lifestyle, that I saw long-lasting results. After 1 year on this diet, I lost 60 pounds and my health came back to normal. I was around 225 pounds at one point, and look, I'm not a tall guy, okay, so that was a lot of weight for me. And now I fluctuate between 165 and 170, and I could lose a few more pounds, but right now I feel great. My energy is back, my health is back, and it's been 6-7 years now that I've been whole food plant-based, so it's been a blessing in my life. Right now, obesity is one of the leading causes of dozens of life-threatening, debilitating chronic conditions, and it's a real epidemic not only in the US but around the world. All of this motivated me to create the Diet Fiction documentary that later inspired me to create this podcast to help tackle a lot of these misconceptions about dieting and weight loss that affected my life and the lives of many people that I know for many years. I wanted to help people take control over their weight and their lives. So today, the one and only Dr. Pam Popper will be joining us to give her perspective on these issues and also give us several tips. Dr. Popper is a world-renowned expert in health and nutrition. She's a best-selling author. She has been featured in several films, including Forks Over Knives and 2 of my own films, Food Choices and Diet Fiction. She also is the founder of Wellness Forum Health. And guys, she is a real health crusader, speaking in health and medical conferences all around the world. She's also a personal friend, and I had the honor to co-author 2 books with her. By the way, we just recently launched a companion book for the film. It is also called Diet Fiction, and it is available on Amazon. I co-wrote this book with Dr. Pam Popper, like I said, and if you enjoyed the Diet Fiction documentary, then you might also really like this book as it gets into a lot more details on the topics covered in the film. So check it out on Amazon or click on the link below on the show notes at dietfictionpodcast.com. Just a quick update on Diet Fiction, the film. I just wanted to say thank you for all of the amazing support. It's been already several months since we launched the film on January 1st, and we're still on the top 5 most sold documentaries on iTunes in the USA and Canada. If you haven't seen it yet, you can watch it on iTunes, Amazon, Vimeo, Google Play, Vudu, and dozens of other digital platforms. We're adding new platforms all the time, and we have also Blu-rays and DVDs available on Amazon. If you watch it, please let us know what you think and join our community on Facebook at facebook.com/dietfictionmovie or on Instagram at dietfiction. And guys, if you haven't watched our previous movie, Food Choices, that is the precursor to Diet Fiction, it is available for free on Amazon Prime for anyone that has a subscription. So check it out, and it's also available on dozens of other platforms. Alright guys, that's it for the commercial stuff. I'm really excited to welcome Dr. Pam Popper here. So without further ado, let's get started with the podcast. Hey Pam, how are you? Thank you for joining us again here on the Diet Fiction Podcast.
It's great to be here. We always have a very good time and have so much to talk about, and the time goes really, really fast, and then we're done. So let's cover some ground.
Absolutely. And today we're going to be talking about weight loss. So our latest documentary, Diet Fiction, and also the book that Dr. Pam Popper and I just released on Amazon, also really focus on weight loss and dieting. So we wanted to record a podcast to kind of go over some of the most common questions that we get asked when it comes to dieting and weight loss, because there's so much confusion, so much misinformation, and so many misconceptions out there. So I think it's important to set the record straight and keep doing that over and over, because there's just so much wrong information out there. Dr. Popper is one of the world leading experts in the topic, so I'm really glad that she could join us here today. So Pam, just to get started, what are some of the most common mistakes that you see people making when they are trying to lose weight in your practice, in your office?
Well, oh my gosh, it's hard to know where to start. But I think one of the biggest ones is that most people don't understand how they gained weight. And so they're really susceptible to bad messages about how to lose it. And the more they diet, the fatter they get, and then the more desperate they get, and the more they latch on to bad programs looking for, I wouldn't even call it a quick fix. I think they get beyond that. They're just looking for any kind of fix. So I think it starts with a complete misunderstanding about how weight is gained and what types of foods cause it. And if you don't know how you got into the mess you're in, you're really not going to be able to make very good decisions about how to get out of that mess.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, there's many ways that people can get into that mess. What are, in your opinion, some of the most common misconceptions that you see these days? I mean, on Diet Fiction, we talk a lot about things like calorie density. Do you think that is one contributing factor, that people just don't understand the concepts of calorie density and end up being misled by that?
That's exactly what I was going to say. I've never been a fan of calorie counting and how many milligrams of this and micrograms of that is in a food. I don't think people can really do that with any degree of accuracy. But having said that, you have to have some awareness of calorie density of food. And so, and people are astounded when they really start to learn about this. So, let's take oil, for example. Olive oil, people like to dip their bread in olive oil. They want to put oil-based dressings on their salads, and they cook with oil. And okay, so 1 tablespoon of any kind of oil has 120 calories and 14 grams of fat. And 1 cup of avocado has 21 grams of fat. So think about, and this is perfectly logical, what I'm going to tell you. Person gets up in the morning and says, for breakfast this morning, I'm going to have some avocado toast. So they toast, even let's say some whole grain bread, and they have avocado toast. And then, middle of the morning, they have something like a bagel and maybe some type of spread on it, peanut butter sandwich, that's more fat. Lunchtime comes and they have a big salad, that's healthy, right? And put an oil-based salad dressing on it. Well, they get to 1 o'clock and they've had 80 grams of fat. And then they say, I'm really trying to eat healthy, but I just keep getting bigger and bigger. And it's because they don't really understand how calorie dense the stuff that they're eating is. The same thing is true with like animal foods and dairy products. People don't understand that like a little piece of cheese the size of my forefinger has 110 calories, and it's almost all fat. So nobody eats a piece of cheese the size of my forefinger. They eat 8 pieces of cheese that size, So the calorie density issue is a big one. And if people understand that better, then they can stop counting and calculating and eat a lot of food and not have to worry about this so much. But they don't understand it, and diet programs don't teach it.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned avocados, because that's one of the issues that I struggle with. I mean, I love avocados, but I'm also a person that has a tendency to gain weight very easily, even on a whole food plant-based diet. So whenever I overdo on avocados and nuts, I immediately feel can see myself gaining weight very easily. But then I just sort of tone down the avocados, and instead of having them 4 times a week, I'll have them once a week or twice a week in smaller amounts, and that usually does it. But even in the plant-based world, we got to watch ourselves, especially people like myself who have a tendency to gain weight easily. Those things can be a problem. I mean, avocados on themselves, they're very healthy, but if you overdo any fatty foods, and you have a tendency to gain weight, you will gain that weight and fast. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's kind of what I see in my life as well.
Well, one tip that I give people when it comes to avocados and nuts, I mean, there are some situations in which people have to eat a really ultra low fat diet because they have coronary artery disease. They maybe have had a heart attack or something like that. But most people can eat some of that type of food without much trouble. But here's a way to know if it's okay or not, because I think what people want is some guidelines that make it so they know what to do in different circumstances. So I eat avocados and I eat nuts, but the way that I eat them is when they're part of something that I'm eating. So a couple examples I'll give you. There's a really good pizza place here in Columbus. In fact, they win the best pizza every year. And one of the reasons a lot of us like to go there is probably a third of the menu is vegan pizzas, and they have great salads. And so this place has a kale salad. It's phenomenal. And on top, they put like 4 slices of avocado. Okay, so when I go there, I eat that avocado. What I try not to do is go to the store and buy 5 avocados and then come home and put them in things, because first of all, I live by myself. And so if you open up an avocado today at lunchtime, you're probably going to eat the rest of it at dinner because it'll go bad. So that's part of the problem. And nuts and that sort of thing, like I'll make a recipe of something that calls for, sprinkling. I make this vegetable biryani thing that has slivered almonds on top, and I'll eat that. But again, that's different than putting your hand on the bag and pulling out hands full of cashews and almonds and that sort of thing, where before you know it, you've just consumed like 600 calories, a lot of fat. So I think it's good to not take these foods off the table, but to give people ways to incorporate them, where again they're conscious of the fact that they're really calorie dense food. They can't be the source or the center of the things that you're eating, or you'll be a 300-pound vegan.
Exactly. Yeah. I totally understand that, and I have seen in my own body how that works. So now I'm a lot more mindful of these fatty plant foods. But Pam, let's talk about. I want to talk about fiber and calories because I think it's important to make that distinction there when it comes to calorie density. Because, for example, if you're comparing 2 dishes that have the same amount of calories, let's say a donut and a bowl of quinoa with vegetables that each, let's say, has 1,000 calories. But the donut has essentially almost 0 fiber, but the bowl of quinoa is full of fiber and all the other good stuff that come with the plants. But can you talk a little bit about the role of fiber when it comes to the absorption of the sugars and the accumulation of fat in our bodies?
Yeah, and it's an important one. You bring up a very important point. So the first thing is that if fiber keeps things moving through the system, which is good for everybody. I mean, every other commercial on TV these days is for a laxative, kind of tells you what people's problems are in this country. But so you get that nice moving experience from the fiber. But when you eat fiber-rich foods, you get full. And so, when you think about it, we have the way that we know that we're full is 2 things. One is the stretch receptors in the stomach that let you know that the stomach is full, and you're going to get fuller on a high fiber meal than you will on a low fiber meal. So your comparison is really a good one. Bowl of quinoa and vegetables versus donut. So you look at the amount of space the donut takes up after it's all chewed up, and you got to eat 10 donuts to fill the stomach with donut. Okay, so it's ridiculous amount of calories. And then you look at the vegetables and quinoa, assuming that you're not using a high-fat dressing or something on it, and you're going to you couldn't eat 1,000 calories of it because you wouldn't be, there's not enough room. So when you're eating these high-fiber foods, you max out at 400 calories, 500 calories. You just can't eat anymore. I mean, I had a bowl of split pea soup and rice for lunch today that had probably 15 grams of fiber. You can't eat 4 bowls of it. You'll just explode, So what happens is you get full, and people need to feel full. That's why some people will just keep eating and eating, like when they're eating a donut or they're eating this really calorie dense stuff. The piece of cheese that is the size of my forefinger, it doesn't take up much room in the stomach, and it's really calorie dense. So how much cheese do you have to eat? About 3,000 calories worth to fill your stomach. Well, and that's one time. You're going to fill your stomach 4 or 5 times a day, right? So that's again why people gain some weight. The food's very calorie dense when you're eating the wrong foods, and then it doesn't have fiber, so the fiber doesn't take up so much space, and you just end up eating gargantuan numbers of calories to achieve the same level of satiety that you would achieve with black bean chili or quinoa and vegetables or sweet potatoes and a salad or something like that.
Now, I wanted to ask you this more out of personal curiosity. What is your take about eating late at night? Is it really bad for you, even if you're just snacking some healthy foods? Can it contribute to weight gain if you're eating late at night?
Actually, I just wrote an article on that because, I'll be very honest with you why I did it. So many people talk about how bad it is to eat late at night, and I always eat something late at night. And of course, you've seen me. I don't really have a weight problem. But the reason I eat late at night is because I get hungry, and I can't sleep when I'm hungry. So I thought, okay, I'm going to look into this because I really do want to be healthy and live a long time. So if I have to find a way to not eat at night, I'm willing to do it if it turns out that that's what you have to do. But I actually found the opposite. And for particularly diabetics, it's almost imperative that they eat late at night because their glucose control goes just completely out the window when they don't do it. It's one of the reasons why it's hard to regulate their medications when they don't eat late at night. But there's only one group of people that really has a problem with eating late at night, and it's people who, for whatever reason, save all of their calories or most of their calories for eating from dinner time on. And for those people, the problem isn't late night eating. The problem is the concentration of calories late in the day period. But for people like you and I, who are eating a healthy diet, we're maintaining normal weight and all that kind of stuff, we're actually a little bit better off if we eat late at night. And so we're vindicated, Michal. We can have a late night meal.
Well, I'm really relieved to hear that because I can't imagine, watching a movie late night and not having some snacks, some carrots or some fruit or some healthy snacks. So that makes me feel much better now.
Well, in my case, I work at night. Like tonight, I think I have a class to teach tonight, and I'm not finished till 9:30 or 10. Well, I'm going to eat dinner at 6 and ish, something like that. Well, after I work for 4 hours, I'm hungry again. And I can't sleep when I'm hungry. I just lay there and I wait for breakfast to come, which is kind of counterproductive. That's not healthy. Staying up all night waiting for breakfast is not healthy either.
Yeah, I think that, whenever you're sort of depriving yourself from something, that doesn't, usually it's not sustainable in the long term. So I hear sometimes people say, oh, I'm avoiding eating at night. So yeah, that's great if you can do that. But if every night you're kind of suffering through this process of not eating at night, most of the time it's not very sustainable in the long term. I went through that. For a while I was avoiding eating at night, but then I was like, man, I'm hungry. I can't sleep. I can't work. I can't even, watch a movie sometimes because I'm hungry. So I think it's if you can eat healthy snacks, and like you said, based on your research, it doesn't really contribute that much to weight gain. If you're eating right, then that's good news.
Right. Well, I think the one of the big take-home points, which it's just hard for people who've restricted themselves trying to lose weight for a long time, it's just hard for them to imagine, is how much food you can eat and how little you have to worry about stuff like that when you really convert to a calorie dilute, low fat, high fiber, plant-based diet. And I'm sure you get the same thing said to you that I get said to me all the time by my overweight friends who sometimes go, my gosh, do you eat a lot of food? And people will comment sometimes in restaurants, go places where the portions are really big and they'll go, oh my gosh, you ate your whole dinner. I tell them, yeah, I'll probably the more when I go home. And so but when you come from a world of dieting where the way to stay thin is restrict, and you're told you have to be disciplined and use willpower, and you have to be able to push the plate away, and so take the tiny bit of food and you put it on a smaller plate, and then you won't think it's such a small amount of food. Well, your stomach still thinks it's a small amount of food, but this restriction mentality that people have, and it's so. It's exhausting for me to watch, and I just feel grateful every day that we can eat with what I call careless abandon on this type of eating plan and stay lean.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned a low-fat, whole food, plant-based diet, because a lot of people get confused and they think that if they go vegan, that essentially it's going to solve all their problems. But there can be a big difference between a vegan diet full of processed food and junk food, and a low-fat, whole food, plant-based diet. And we see a lot of these new vegan burgers and sausages and cheeses coming into the market, which is great from an animal rights perspective. And I mean, let's face it, they taste delicious, all these new Beyond Burgers and Impossible Burgers and the like. But if you indulge in them too often, I mean, you'll gain weight really quickly, don't you think?
Yeah, and that's treat food. And I think this is another thing too. This restriction mentality and sometimes dieting is just presented as you just restrict. And even sometimes in the plant-based world, it goes a little over the top with, don't eat anything processed and that sort of thing. And I think that what that leads to is people just saying, to heck with it, kind of concluding the same thing. It's too restrictive. I can't do it. So one of the things that we try to teach people is, first of all, the amount of processed food you eat needs to be significantly less than the whole foods every day. So if you're eating more bread and pasta than you are sweet potatoes and quinoa and vegetables, then you got to rearrange things a little bit. And then the really highly processed stuff, like the what you're talking about, an Impossible Burger, or some plant-based sausage substitute or cheese or whatever, that's treat food. It's for holidays. It's what you get for your birthday. It's what you have on Thanksgiving, something like that. And then it's okay to have a little bit of it for a holiday. I mean, we have sweet potato pie on Thanksgiving. It's vegan. It's delicious. It's, I don't eat that every day, right? So special occasions is when you have that. But on a day like today, you and I are talking on Thursday. I think every day is great, but it's just Thursday. I mean, it's just a normal day. Nobody's visiting here from Australia. It's not conference weekend. It's not my birthday, my dad's birthday. So today I'm eating a lot of potatoes and salad and oatmeal and more sweet potatoes and broccoli and that kind of stuff. So if we could just get people saving the treat stuff for treat occasions, they would be so much better off.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I think knowing your body, I mean, your body will tell you right away if you're eating it too often, For me, I mean, when these new vegan burgers came out, we were kind of indulging in them kind of too often, I think, maybe like once a week. And then I noticed that, I was, first of all, like my digestion was not that good. And I noticed a small weight gain. So then I just reduced it to, like you said, special occasions, like once a month, once every couple of months. And that does the trick. But yeah, special occasions, I think that's a good way to look at it, a good approach. Just don't make those special occasions every other day, because I think then that's when problems can arise.
Well, one of the people will sometimes get funny with me and say, well, what about National Kidney Donors Week? Is that like a special occasion week where I can have cake every day? I got, no. And here's one way to tell, I think, is that if it's something that you're planning for, If you planned it, it's probably okay. And if it ended up being just like, oh, well, I feel like having it, off the cuff decision, it's probably not a good idea. So, there's a couple of events that I go to every year in Columbus that are catered by a really great place, and they make a vegan meal for me. And one of them's the Nutcracker Ball. I've always been really involved with our dance company here, and they make a very decadent dessert for me. And I usually have a glass of wine because it's a really fabulous event. I've been going for like 20 some years. I love it, and I plan for that all year long. So that's like a good cheat because it's planned for, as opposed to, well, everybody else is eating this calorie dense garbage, so I think I'll just put my hand on the bowl and have it too. That's when you make your worst decisions. And so it's really important, I think, to set up the environment to discourage that kind of thing happening. And because most of us don't really have very good willpower in those situations, so it's better to arrange the environment in your life to facilitate the good decision making instead of thinking, I'm going to stay strong and watch people eat something I love and not touch it. That usually doesn't work out so well.
Yeah, totally. And, I wanted to talk a little bit about other diets. And, we have this great quote by Dr. Dean Ornish in the documentary where he says that, you have to find a way to lose weight without mortgaging your health in the process. Because, and it's so true, because we see all these other diets out there, like the ketogenic diet or Atkins or paleo, where people go on those diets and they work. You lose weight. But then you get into this vicious cycle, this yo-yo effect, because you lose the weight. When you get off the diet, you gain the weight back, and so on and so on. But can you talk a little bit about your perspective on this issue, and what is the difference between losing weight on those short-term, low-carb, high-protein diets versus losing weight long-term with a lifestyle change like low-fat, whole food, plant-based diet?
Yeah, and first of all, when people are talking about diets, they so often focus on the fact that it works, and the demonstration that it works is that somebody they know, the person knows, lost weight doing it. Okay, so my friend Joe lost 20 pounds in 6 weeks on a ketogenic diet, therefore it's a good diet because it works. Well, I tell people, if the only definition of a good diet, if that's how we're going to determine what's a good diet, that it works. Let me tell you what works the best. I'm going to tell you, this is the secret everybody's been waiting for. Do you know what works best for weight loss? Really quick weight loss. Cocaine addiction. Okay? Cocaine addicts notoriously are skinny people. I've never met an overweight cocaine addict, actually. And they have really low cholesterol levels, too. Now, somebody listening to this says, this is insane. This woman's suggesting cocaine addiction. Well, the point is that if the only parameter that we're looking for is that it works, and we don't care about mortgaging our health, as Dr. Ornish says, then that would be the number one pick. But that's crazy, right? And I picked that example because it's crazy. So here's the thing. Almost any new eating plan that a person adopts will work in the short term for weight loss. Very few of them work in the long term. And the reasons are, one of the biggest reasons is that people can't sustain them with the side effects. There was a really good study done of the Atkins diet, which is close to keto because it's so high in fat, many, many years ago. It was actually funded by the Atkins organization. And the side effects people had from that diet, they had gastrointestinal difficulties, bad breath, cramps, and every bad thing that you can't live like that for a long time. So even as intoxicating as all the fat eating sounds in the beginning, if you're constipated and your friends can't stand to be in the same room with you because your breath is so bad, it isn't going to last very long, Yeah. And the ketogenic diet, if you read the data on children who adopt a ketogenic diet, or the parents put them on it because it is effective for resolving epilepsy, it's widely known that those kids spend the whole rest of their life recovering from the effects of being on that diet for 2 or 3 years. Now, it's kind of worth it to them because they weren't going to have a life while they're seizuring out 50 times a day. But there's absolutely no reason for an adult who could adopt a plant-based diet to opt for something that dangerous and spend the whole rest of their life recovering from 3 years of eating fat. It's just a crazy decision. So paleo's just the same. It affects different things. A high-protein diet And I know people, we've had people join here who blew out their kidneys on a paleo diet because of the protein load. So being a skinny person and kidney failure, I mean, that's not a goal anybody would write down and say, this is what I want to have happen to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And what is your take on weight loss supplements? There's such a big industry and so many people, using them to help speed up their process of weight loss. Are they dangerous? Should people be worried about them?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I remember when I first started in this business 24 years ago, hard to believe it, but you might remember the drug combo fen-phen. And it really worked for weight loss, by the way. The problem was heart failure and cardiovascular disease as a result. It ended up being part of that drug ended up being taken off the market. Same thing is true with supplements. Over the years, there have been many supplements, and a lot of them were just, over-the-counter speed that were marketed for weight loss, some of which have been taken off of the market because they're dangerous. And of course, what people don't realize when they start taking these supplements, in addition to the side effects, is that there's nothing you can do in the way of taking a pill that's going to overcome what you're doing 5 or 6 times a day with meals. You can't eat 4 or 5, 6,000 calories a day of protein and fat and processed food and junk and solve that with a little pill anyway. So people will sometimes get some short-term weight loss from it, but it's not sustainable. A lot of it's dangerous, and strongly recommend against.
Interesting. Yes, and one thing that I wanted to explore as well, and we talk about this on Diet Fiction, on the film, and also in the book, as far as exercise goes. I mean, I remember when I was 60 pounds overweight, I tried all the different diets and I went through the typical yo-yo effect. And at some point I said, okay, now what I really got to do is exercise. So I joined the gym and I started going every day and I got a personal trainer. The problem is that when I came back home, I was even hungrier. So even though I lost maybe, 200-300 calories at the gym, I would come back home and treat myself to a giant plate of pasta and cheese and a huge salad with a bunch of dressings. And instead of losing weight, I actually ended up gaining weight. So what is your opinion about people that, or your message to people that want to lose weight and are really focused on exercise but are not doing anything about their diets? They're essentially eating the same standard American or whatever other diet they might be on.
Well, first of all, your story is common. Exercise becomes like permission to eat more. But let's look at it from a different perspective. You remember Bob Harper? He was the guy that on The Biggest Loser. And the day he had his heart attack, he looked fit. So he actually succeeded in staying lean in spite of his bad diet. And what happened to him? He was a lean guy who had a heart attack. I don't think anybody aspires for that either, right? So the bottom line is that you first of all, you can't exercise away a lot of what people are eating. Like I remember looking at the way that kids eat, for example, and we have a horrific obesity problem with children that we're going to have to do something about at some point in time because the long-term consequences of that are horrific. But the average child who eats a fast food, some type of packaged meal with a burger and fries and a milkshake or something like that's eating 675 calories. Okay, so that kid needs to get on the treadmill or run for 75 minutes to get rid of that. Well, that's just one meal. I mean, how much running can an 8-year-old do in a day to get rid of that? So I think that you have to exercise, and there are a lot of reasons for it. And I think that telling people that if they eat right, they don't have to exercise, that would be wrong. But the other side of it is this perception that if you exercise, you can then get away with bad dietary habits. Even if you're successful from a weight standpoint, like Bob Harper, he still ended up being a cardiac patient. So that's not a win. So you got to get the diet thing right, no matter what else you do. And then I can give you a whole lot of reasons aside from weight loss why you should be exercising, but it actually does help with the weight loss too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not, that exercise is bad, exercise is excellent. But like you said, it's just people focusing just on that and forgetting about diet. That's when usually problems happen.
Exactly.
And if you were to summarize, a few of those items, especially for people, let's say in the plant-based world, which is most of our audience are people that are already vegetarian or vegan or eating a whole food plant-based diet or interested in the topic. What are some of the main items that they should be aware of if we're to summarize kind of what we talked about here when it comes to weight gain and weight loss?
Well, I think the first thing is you really have to get focused on this calorie density issue. You've got to understand the calorie density of foods, and that means eating low-fat, high-fiber, plant-based foods. And then use, treats are treats, and avocados and nuts are okay when they're part of dishes, but that can't be the daily fare if you're going to stay really lean. So focusing on whole foods and not worrying about portions. In fact, this is kind of interesting. A lot of people, part of their problem losing weight is they're so used to restriction that they don't eat enough of the low-fat, high-fiber plant food, which sounds crazy, right? People who need to lose weight need to eat more food, but you do need to eat more food on this diet of the right kinds of food. So eat whole foods, stay away from the high-fat stuff that we all love and is yummy, and you'll be able to stay lean. One thing I think is really important is getting your environment set up so that you're not playing willpower games with yourself. I see people do this all the time. They have all the stuff that they love and are not supposed to eat at their office and their home, and then they think, I'll just save it for, Pam says it's okay to have a treat, so I'll just save it and, munch on it when it's treat time. Well, what they end up doing is not that. And I can tell you from personal experience, I know a lot about this and reasons to do the right thing. But when I finish teaching late at night, what I don't want to do is stand in the kitchen and go, well, gosh, I've got bananas and oranges and some frozen grapes and pineapple all cut up. And then I have soy ice cream and cookies. And well, at some point in time, the ice cream and cookies start to win out. And so I don't have any of that stuff in my house, which means that I have to go get it. So it now becomes easier to do the right thing than to do the wrong thing. So I'm really a firm believer in getting your environment set up so that it's real easy to choose good things. Third thing I'll mention, and this is, we've been talking about this a lot here lately, is that you have to eat more often on this diet, which I love because I love eating, so you have to eat more often. And so people don't want to cook like several times a day. So batch cooking can be really helpful. And then you have your refrigerator stocked with stuff that's ready to go. And it makes it a lot less tempting to eat the wrong choice of things when you have things that are all ready. And then you're not so likely to go to a drive-through or something like that. So that's what I think. And then one last thing I'll mention, and I think this is true for weight loss and it's true for everything else too. Some people look at this eating a plant-based diet, they go, oh gosh, it's going to be so hard. And I guess I'm just being punished for doing all the wrong things for such a long time. And I tell people, this is not a punishment for your prior bad behavior. This is a gift. That's why I feel about it. I was in terrible health because of my prior bad behavior 26 years ago. But the bottom line is I am so lucky to know about this and to be the age that I am and still have all my body parts and, knock on wood, take no pharmaceutical drugs and have health. It's a wonderful thing to have health. It's a gift. Don't squander it.
So one thing that I wanted to talk about also is, because on one end you see the people that are eating a plant-based diet and are indulging too often in either the vegan processed foods or the whole food plant-based foods such as avocados and nuts. They're indulging in those too often and they end up gaining weight. But then they hear a message, that you should be eating more whole plant foods, and then they, instead of eating a more balanced whole food plant-based diet, they end up going to the other end of the spectrum and just eating dark leafy vegetables, and then they say, oh no, this is not sustainable, I can't be vegan, and they go back to their old eating habits. So what is the right sort of approach to eating a whole food plant-based diet, and can you give some examples of foods that people should focus on?
Yeah, it's a good question. And this issue of not eating enough calories, like the person who says, I just ate salads all day and I was so hungry I couldn't take it anymore. So I went back to eating steak and hamburgers and dairy, right? So the thing and it's again related to this understanding calorie density of food. So when you take a look at the way most people eat, their calories are concentrated in animal foods and processed foods, which are calorie dense. Okay, so you pull those foods out of the diet. And then they think fruits and vegetables rock. And my gosh, they do rock. I love them. You love them. They're great foods, nutritious. But a pound of vegetables has 100 calories and a pound of fruit has 200 calories. So the problem is if you try to live on just those foods, it's almost impossible to get enough calories in the day. I mean, I'd have to quit working and just stay home and eat all day. That would be it, right? So that doesn't work. So what you have to do is you have to bring in foods that replace those calorie dense foods. They're going to be lower calorie than steak and cheese and toaster pastries, but they're still going to be higher than the fruits and vegetables. So the foods we're talking about are like potatoes and squashes and rice and beans and beets, root vegetables, and those kinds of foods. And so if I eat a great big salad for lunch or something, that's great, great food, but maybe it has 150 calories. So I've got to have a couple sweet potatoes with it. Now we have 450 calories. Okay, I'm probably going to make it for a few hours, right? For dinner tonight, I'm going to have a big bowl of vegetable soup and rice and a great big salad with that. But if it weren't for the vegetable soup with a cup and a half of rice in it, I wouldn't be able to sustain myself till it's time to eat again later on. So those starchy foods become really, really important. And of course, most people, and again, this is very common because of what they've been told in other programs. They go, "Oh, starch makes you fat," and all. Well, 2 billion Asians never got the memo. They're living on rice 3 or 4 times a day. You've got the Northern Africans who are eating potatoes and tubers, the Okinawans, almost 70% of their diets, sweet potatoes. So your leanest, healthiest people in the world live on starchy foods. And that's what people have to do if they're going to be able to do this and have enough food so they feel actually satisfied.
That's excellent. Thank you for explaining that. And I think we covered a lot of ground. And guys, if you would like to dig a little deeper into this topic and we cover all of this and much more in the book that I just had the honor of co-authoring with Dr. Popper. It's also called Diet Fiction. It's on Amazon. And if you haven't watched the film yet, Diet Fiction is available on iTunes, Amazon, Vudu, Vimeo, Google Play, and many other platforms. So check it out. And now we have this great companion book for anyone that would like to delve deeper into this topic. There's only so much that we can cover in a film, and with the book, we really had the chance to explore a lot of the topics in more detail. So check it out. And Pam, what is for people that would like to get some personal advice from you, they would like to get a personal consultation from you, how can they get a hold of you? And can you talk a little bit about your program?
Yeah, well, I'm with Wellness Forum Health, and our specialty is informed medical decision making. So we help people look at the risks and benefits of diets. In the case of what we've been talking about, is a keto diet good, bad? What are the risks? Paleo, etc. But also drugs and procedures and screening tests, all kinds of other things that supplements people want to learn about and make decisions about. Our website's www.wellnessforumhealth.com. My personal email address is pampopper@msn.com. I answer all my emails, so you can send me an email. And you can look at our content online. I put out a newsletter every week and video clips Tuesdays and Thursdays. Lots of free education if you want to sign up for that.
Yeah, guys, and one great thing that Dr. Popper does that a lot of experts are not able to do, I mean, she does consultations remotely, so if you just kind of want a second opinion or just, chat with her about a certain issue, you can, she does Skype remote consultations as well, which I think is great. And anything else, Pam, that you would like to add? I mean, we're going to leave links to all of your pages and your email on the show notes.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I'd finish with is that this is easy to do. People think it's hard. They think it's expensive. It's actually less expensive to eat this way. It's easier to eat this way. And it's easier to live a great life when you do this. I mean, it really is a great life when you're not preoccupied all the time with your weight and health problems. It's very freeing. Highly recommended.
Thank you very much, Pam, for joining us again here on the podcast. We'll bring you back again and pretty soon to talk about other topics. What I love about this nutrition world is that there's so many things we can talk about, and there's so many misconceptions and misinformation out there that I think it's really important that we revisit a lot of these issues often. So thank you so much for participating, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you for having me.